The last week, you were there last Saturday when things did turn violent. Would you describe today as violent in any way? Would you call these protesters rioters?
In no way, shape, or form, Stephanie. These are peaceful protesters. Guys, can I see what your sign says? We're live on MSNBC. Immigrants, Palestinians, resistance are not the enemy. Don't let the ruling class tell you who the enemies are. Libertad y justicia para todos, for everybody. Liberty and justice for all. Liberty and justice for all. How's it feel to be out here over the 101 with all these people honking in support of you guys?
It feels good to know. I mean, there's no reason for all of this. I mean, it's unlawful. We can't have a president who's a fucking felon, honestly. I mean, these are people who have been here. They provide for us not just labor, but they're human beings. They deserve rights.
Thank you so much. What's your name?
Leilani.
How about you?
Noemi.
I'm Jacob. It's nice to meet you guys. Thank you very much. Listen, there's some salty language out here, Steph, but feelings are running high and they're running hot. But I'll tell you one thing right now. This is a peaceful protest if I have ever seen one. This is where, some of those troublemakers were over the course of the last week or so, stopping traffic on the freeway, clashing with the riot police from the California Highway Patrol down there. That is not the scene right now. That is not what is happening out here. They want ICE out of L.A., and they're making no mistake about it.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about the so-called No Kings protest once again, because the left, they're trying to take a victory lap, right? They're claiming that millions of people marched against President Trump. It was so successful, except so-called No Kings Day was objectively a failure. The reason why is because the premise of the protest, right, which is to protest against the United States having a king, is just flawed, because the United States does not have a king. If we had a king, they wouldn't be allowed to protest, right? I mean, the fact that they're allowed to protest shows you that we don't have a king. So these people were wasting their time. These protests were destined to fail from the beginning. Nobody showed up except for far left extremists in the boomer base of the Democrat Party, right? That is who showed up. And let's just say some people who showed up found out that probably wasn't a good idea to attend these protests that did not accomplish a damn thing, because a lot of people got hurt during these protests because these protests were not peaceful. They were violent. And despite the narrative for the mainstream liberal media and the local media to try to make it seem as if these people are peaceful, they are incapable of actually conducting peaceful protests.
They reported, the officers did, taking bottles and bricks and rocks being thrown at them by a group. And I don't like calling them protesters. The LAPD calls them agitators. They also call them outside agitators, implying they were not part of the peaceful protest. They reported taking bottles and bricks and rocks from these agitators. That caused them to issue the dispersal order, and things deteriorated from there. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I've read those reports. I've also read reports and seen footage by Associated Press and NBC, both directly contradicting those reports, claiming that they were entirely unprovoked. Now, obviously, I'm part of a nonviolent movement. We have entirely peaceful protests. If there were any sort of violence by outside agitators, that's not something that we support. But the violence that I saw, the violence that Associated Press saw, and the violence that NBC saw were exclusively against civilians by law enforcement. And let me be very specific here. I have spoken to someone who was shot 3 times in the face with rubber bullets. Rubber bullets are meant to be, according to police protocol, shot off the ground and ricocheted and then potentially hitting someone, but more scaring them than anything else. Shooting them directly at someone is a violation of how those are supposed to be used, and that is directly violent in a way that cannot be defended. And that is my fundamental issue there. Frankly, just taking the worst possible situation, someone throwing a water bottle at you versus someone firing rubber bullets at high impact velocity speeds directly at your face, which could cause terminal brain injuries or even kill you, those things are not at all equivalent, and I think it's a disservice to the people of Los Angeles to present it that way. But, of course, obviously, I heard you guys were talking about fireworks and stuff, and I understand in that case we obviously want to be careful when people are playing with literal fire after what happened in California over these past couple months.
We've seen this time and time again. These left-wing extremists do not know how to conduct peaceful protests, okay? They do not have the ability to conduct peaceful protests. This is why in liberal city after liberal city, their reports about how the protests were violent, right? Even though they're trying really hard to push this narrative that they were peaceful. Like, for example, out in Portland, okay, which is basically Antifa Central, you had protests get violent after the extremists tried to break into an ICE facility.
And good evening. We have that 6 breaking news alert. I'm Lisa Balick. Tens of thousands of Oregonians today out in force, joining the worldwide demonstrations against President Donald Trump and his policies. And outside at this hour, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement headquarters in South Portland. Federal agents and protesters are in conflict at this hour. CS gas has been deployed. Our Ariel Salk is live there with the latest.
So there's still hundreds of people out here. ICE continues to throw those canisters of tear gas into the crowd. I'm going to step aside so you can get a closer look. We are going to try to give you a nice look at what's going on here. But there is a lot of profanity on site, so we're doing our very best to avoid that. Oop, as you can hear, that was some kind of flash or bang. Not sure where that came from, but it hasn't deterred the crowd at all. Earlier, when there was tear gas, the crowd would run and then go back, but now everybody's pretty settled in. They've got their masks. People are passing out waters and snacks and masks. Like I was mentioning earlier, the doors of the ICE building appear to be open or broken. We're trying to get a better, closer look of that as well. Oh, a bunch of people are running. We're not sure exactly what is going on. We're going to try to avoid from being hit. We're not quite sure what is happening. We are seeing they broke the door in, apparently. That's what I'm being told. We're seeing a lot of tear gas. People are running away. I'm so sorry for the profanity. We are trying to avoid that. But the tear gas is coming, blowing down the street that we're on. People have stopped running. They're kind of going back, but there is a lot of activity at this very moment.
Hey, Ariel,
got a little bit of sage as well to kind of even that out.
Ariel, this is Lisa in the studio. Are you guys going to move back a little bit, just in case, in other words, you guys don't have masks on right now, just to get out of that? But like you said, the door has been breached at ICE, which clearly
further back.
All across the country, thousands of people protested the Trump administration in a massive movement. It's expected this will be the largest single-day mobilization since President Trump returned to office in January, with people in all 50 states participating in some sort of No King rally. While the vast majority of protests were peaceful, some turned chaotic, including here in Portland. This video shows the moment Portland police first declared a riot outside of the ICE facility at around 6:30 last night after a federal officer was injured by the crowd. The federal officer did not require medical treatment. Police ordered people to leave the area of South Moody and Bancroft or face arrest. Some agents fired tear gas into the crowd, warning physical force could be next if protesters continue to be violent. Police arrested one person for an attempted assault of an officer. Police say they saw some criminal behavior throughout the night. They made 2 more arrests. One was after police saw someone throw a rock at the building. Officers reported being pepper sprayed while making that arrest. At 1 this morning, police arrested a 3rd person on Southwest McAdam Boulevard, who they say was picking up traffic control devices and putting them in his truck. Portland police say all 3 arrests were strictly focused on criminal actions and not constitutionally protected free speech.
Yeah, mostly peaceful, they say, right? Again, except when it's not peaceful. Like, for example, what happened out in Utah, okay? In Salt Lake City, there was a No Kings protester that got involved in a shooting, right? Somebody was shot at the mostly peaceful protest out in Salt Lake City. Take a look.
A peaceful protest of an estimated 10,000 people in Salt Lake City turned to chaos tonight. That is the breaking news we're following. I'm Jordan Tracy. Salt Lake City police reporting a shooting near 200 South State Street, possibly associated with tonight's No Kings protest that was taking place across the country and across the Beehive State. Let's take a look now at that scene that we saw earlier today of that protest as demonstrators took to the streets protesting the No Kings protest that we saw across the country. This is the moment our photographer realized something had happened, and people leaving that protest, running out of the streets as police started to respond to that parking garage there. You see that is on State Street and 200 South. We're being told a person of interest is in custody, according to police, and one person critically injured, taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. As we continue to learn more this evening, we do have a reporter live on the scene. We're going to go to them now. Alyssa Royster from ABC4 News is there at the scene with what she can tell us at this time. Alyssa, what do you have?
Jordan, that's right. I'm here downtown where, yes, someone was shot during the No Kings protest. That person now in the hospital with life-threatening injuries. Now, the anti-ICE protests, which they're being held nationwide, are meant to oppose what demonstrators see as power grabs, if you will, by President Trump. So the one here started at 6 p.m. at Pioneer Park. Police estimated that 10,000 people were marching through the streets, which was evident as it was hard to even get here with everywhere you looked, people walking with their flags and signs. So at first things started out peaceful, but then around 8 we started seeing people running on camera. Police then posted on X a few minutes later saying they were investigating a shooting possibly associated with the demonstration near 200 South State Street. That shooting turned out to be true. Again, that person now in the hospital critically injured. Now, this protest comes just after the one we had just a few days ago downtown. But with that one, other than a few small fights that police had to break up, an arrest, and a car being damaged, law enforcement actually thanked protesters for keeping it peaceful. Obviously, this was a different story tonight. Now, there is going to be a press conference happening coming up here soon, which I'll be here for, so I'll keep you updated. In the meantime, Jordan, back to you.
Yeah, so what happened out in Utah is an example of the dangers of attending these far-left protests, these far-left riots, these demonstrations, because the person who was actually shot and killed was not the agitator of the situation, because apparently what happened is that you had one of these individuals carrying a rifle, okay, at one of the protests, and security ended up firing shots, okay, and an innocent bystander, one of the protesters, got shot in the crossfire. Also, the agitator was shot as well too. However, the protester, the bystander, ended up dying. Right, he ended up in the hospital, dead. Okay, just because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, attending this protest that was a failure. So it wasn't just violent protesters and innocent protesters that found out that attending these rallies is probably not a good idea. You have reporters who have found out as well too, while attending these protests, that, you know, law enforcement, they're getting sick and tired of these people thinking that they're above the law, right? That they can touch law enforcement, that they can put their hands on law enforcement, that they can assault law enforcement, and that there's not going to be any consequences for it. Yeah, I don't think anybody was immune from finding out when it comes to how law enforcement, again, is they're losing their tolerance. They're losing their patience for these far left extremists.
No, I didn't. You're on TV, and now you're pushing me on live television. All right, we didn't touch anybody. You know that's true. You're okay. Thank you. I got it. So you can see, obviously, tensions are extremely high here.
Yes, because you touched the officer. Don't touch the officer.
We have video testimony. Nobody touched an officer. Okay. Obviously, massively high tensions here. These folks are tired. They are also hot. It's a long day, and it's been a long week. We clearly didn't touch the officers. You're on live television, sir.
Yes, you did.
We were live on the air. Thank you so much. We will stay back. We appreciate what you're doing here. Tensions are high. That was a moment that we haven't experienced very often here. I think that there has been respect between the media and law enforcement here. We have kept our distance.
Yeah, so clearly nobody was immune from the consequences of what happens when you attend one of these stupid protests, okay? Because, again, law enforcement, they're pissed off, right? They're pissed off with these people. They're sick and tired of these people. And, again, people are finding out the really hard way. They're getting hit where it hurts, right? And that's the story I want to talk about here, involving a man who was out protesting in downtown L.A., okay, this week. And he got hit at close range in the jewels, right? In his crown jewels. With a rubber bullet, and now he's claiming that his testicles are shattered, right? So he took to the media, the news, to talk about how he got hit in the testicles, and he probably severely damaged his ability to have children because he decided to attend one of these silly riots.
I was on my bike. I had just gotten off, and I was getting a water bottle from my backpack. And then they started pushing forward. Oh, okay, I just got my backpack then. And then they start shouting, move back. But I'm still like fixing myself up, my backpack, my bike. And then they just push me. And I'm just instinct, I tell the cop, like, don't push me. I'm already moving back. And then the cop right next to him had a gun and just aimed and shot. He was like, what, like 2-3 feet away? After I got hit, I couldn't really walk. I was just like too much in shock. And then they're still pushing me. I know some other protesters were trying to help me like walk, but they're still pushing them too. And everyone's shouting like, yo, he just got hit. Like, let him breathe, let him breathe. Like, and like I needed to sit down for a bit, but they just kept pushing. Right now I'm at home. The injury was sustained to my groin. I have a bruised left testicle, and my right testicle was actually shattered.
Wow.
They said that they somewhat fixed it, so it should have some function, but it's still very badly damaged. They could not give me an exact time of how much I got to sit. They just told me to hit them up in 5-8 days, and then we'll see how I'm doing and when I can get back to work. They hadn't told anybody to move, like to leave the streets. Because one thing that I think they're supposed to say is unlawful gathering or something like that. None of that was mentioned. I want to take it easy, but the 14th is a big movement, so I might be there on a wheelchair. So,
wow. You can't fix stupid. You can't fix stupid. You got hit where it hurts. Probably can't have kids, right? And then he doesn't have the cojones to go live in Mexico, right? A country that apparently he loves so much. These protesters, man, they better start wearing cups, right? They better start wearing cups when they go to some of these riots, okay? You know. Man, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. Like I told you guys, this protest was a massive failure, okay? The purpose of the protest was flawed. These people just want a summer of love. That's what they want. They want to be agents of chaos. And when you juxtapose the imagery of what happened in these liberal cities versus the Army's celebration of their 250th birthday with President Trump, the difference cannot be more stark, right? I mean, you have one side of the aisle that clearly is for law and order, for peace, right? Not for chaos. And then the other side is just for anarchy, chaos, right? And we know that the military parade probably was a massive success. Despite the narrative from the left, these people are basically trying to say that it was a massive failure.
Holy shit, man. That military parade was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. So, look, I'll admit up front, I really thought it was going to look incredibly fascist, incredibly scary, and incredibly efficient. I thought we'd have U.S. soldiers dressed in, like, perfect suits without a wrinkle on them, perfect military uniforms without a wrinkle on them, fucking goose-stepping, everybody in perfect unison, massive missiles that are coming by, everything in tight formation. I thought it was going to be some shit like that. Instead, what we got was just flat out humiliating. It was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen in my life. So you had a bunch of U.S. soldiers, honestly, if I'm keeping it real, looking really schlubby, right? They had, they were walking just like totally normal, like normal dude walk type stuff. And in fact, I'll ask you guys, look, my instinct on that is to say, is this sort of like a low-key fuck you to Trump? That like they didn't want to be there, they didn't want to have to do this parade, and so they do the parade, but their way of sort of protesting it is like, what if we just walked completely normally? Like, we're not in unison, We're all just walking together. You know, only a few people even bothered to do the fucking salute when they walked by him. Like, just really, really incredible stuff. And then, oh my God, they had like creaky ass old tanks and shit. You had somebody who was literally carrying a drone, like carrying a little drone. What the fuck is that? Why would you not fly that bitch through? I mean, like, what the hell?
Even though we know that under President Trump, military recruitment has skyrocketed, right? All of a sudden, more people are joining the military. And people say, oh, well, it's not because of Trump, right? And if, you know, they do give credit to President Trump, they'll say, well, Trump's politicizing the military. That's why people are joining, right? So again, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't with these people. But the numbers are clear. You can't dispute the numbers, okay? Military recruitment has surged, okay? Surged. The U.S. Army announced that it has surpassed its fiscal year 2025 recruiting goals 4 months ahead of schedule following years of falling short of its quota. The milestone marks a potential turning point in one of the military's most persistent challenges, recruitment. Last week, the Army announced that it had signed contracts with more than 61,000 future soldiers, which is more than 10% higher than the 55,000 recruits targeted in fiscal 2024. Recently, the average contracts per day have also exceeded last year's levels by as much as 56% during the same period, according to the Army. Well, yeah, you actually have a commander-in-chief now, right? Nobody believed that Biden was actually running the country. So again, you're gonna have a whole bunch of leftists. They're gonna be coping, right? Oh, Trump's military parade was a failure. It was not a failure, right? It was us getting back to celebrating America's strength, right? And the whole purpose of it, again, is to get people to sign up, to join the military, to serve this country, and to restore nationalism and pride in our country, which is sorely missed, right? It's sorely missed. Again, evidenced by the fact that we have extremists, foreigners, invaders, waving foreign flags in our country, right? In our country, okay? Protested, enforcing federal laws. So, you know, I'm just saying, the imagery that you saw yesterday, the chaos versus law and order, it just couldn't be more clear. And that's why these leftists coming out here celebrating so-called No King's Day as a success is silly to me. Regular, average, everyday, common sense, sane people in this country saw yesterday, when you saw, again, both sides, right, what they were doing, okay? The choice is clear, right? The people who actually want law and order in this country, who don't want our country to turn into a country of anarchy, clearly there's only one side that you can be on, and it ain't with the so-called No Kings riders. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.